Hello, Ontrafriends. Today we're going to be talking about the SearchReplace shortcode. And this simply allows us to go ahead and do a search on a page for any string, so any piece of text, and replace it with a different string, so any text that we'd like. And we're going to go ahead and also use the monitor function here. So here in our docs you can see exactly what this is going to do. It's going to search for a string on the page and replace it with another one. And the use case that we put out here is being able to translate something like a payment form. So that's exactly what we're going to take a look at. So over here I have a form, and this is one of our standard form templates. You can see that it's a form that's in English, just like you would normally probably, or most of you would probably normally make. But let's say, for example, that I wanted to give the option for somebody who speaks Spanish to go ahead and see this form. Now I've gone ahead and just thrown a little flag icon in here, and I've given it a anchor link. So when I click this, it's going to translate. But you could feasibly do this any way you'd like. It could be based on some parameter in the URL, like language equals ES or whatever. You could also do it based on a form field. So maybe you have a form field on here that says preferred language, and maybe when they change it to Spanish, it goes ahead and translates the rest of the form. But we're going to go ahead and just keep it simple with a click. And there you see, in real time, it went ahead and translated all of this stuff. Now this is pretty simple to set up, but it's going to take a little bit of doing, so it's not something that you'd want to maybe rely on for a full sales page or anything like that. It'd probably be better off to just go ahead and write that straight in the other language. But for anything that is kind of short and deliver it like a form, or maybe even the receipt or the thank you page after somebody opts in, or something like a thank you page after somebody makes an order, anything that's kind of short would work very well for this. So let's go ahead and take a look at how we set it up. So here we are in the editor, and you can see that this is just the basic form template that we have here. Everything is just set up normally. This is the flag that I dropped in here. On the flag, the only thing we've done is given it an other type of anchor link, and we put the hash in here and called it ES. Make sure it's on the same window. And other than that, everything else is done inside the custom code header area. So just kind of a quick breakdown. As always, we have to put the click fix script on the page or else nothing works. Then we go ahead and wrap this in a div, so that way none of this shows up as text on a white screen as the page is loading. And then from there we go ahead and define what we want to happen. So we say if anchor, all right? So if the anchor is ES, meaning somebody has clicked on that flag in this case, then execute all of the search and replace shortcodes that we have listed here. And you can see that I've broken it up by section. So we have the contact info section, the payment info section, the what you get section, and then a miscellaneous. Right, so all we did is we just one by one, we dropped this shortcode, search and replace. We told it to search for the thing that we want to translate, and we told it to replace it with the translation. And this monitor parameter simply tells it to always be looking for any changes inside of that particular block. So you can see here that I told it to change contact information to datos de contacto. And all we did is we just did one additional line for every piece of English text that we wanted to go ahead and change into Spanish. Right? So it's just a lot of copy and paste, and then defining what the translation was for that particular term. And you can see that on the final page, when somebody clicks on that flag in this case, it went ahead and just looked for each piece of content that we defined, and we went ahead and swapped it over. Now, one of the other things that's kind of cool about this, because there are plenty of solutions out there where you could go ahead and maybe create some widget with Google or something like that, but that's going to give you a translation based on what Google thinks translation should be. But in our case, right, for example, on the payment button, right, or this button just says pay, this is something that you have total control over, and you get to define exactly what it is that you want it to say, right? So complete order, there are many translations, and depending on which Spanish you were going to use on this particular example, it could say something like completar pedido or completar pago or a number of other options. But I wanted to keep it simple, so I just said pay. Right? And it's the same with everything else. You have total control over what you want these things to say. Now, just like with most of our shortcodes, this is just one use case that we put out there because this is something that we've had to do for a client. But you can imagine that with search and replace, you pretty much have an unlimited array of options for going ahead and replacing text that exists on a page based on what somebody has done to interact with the page. Now we're using language in this case, but I could have very well said if somebody clicks on, let's imagine that this were a button instead. If someone clicks on this button, then change contact information to give me your deets, right? You can make it say anything you want. It doesn't have to be from one language to another. So now I'm curious, it's your turn. I want to know exactly what you think that search and replace might be good for, and if you have any really good ideas but you're not quite sure how to execute, drop them in the comments below and I'll make a video on that so we can figure out how to make sure that ClickFix is helping you get the most out of your Ontraport account. And if you have any other questions, comments, or concerns, feel free to drop those below too. We do our best to answer everything as fast as possible.